What made you decide to give up your American citizenship and legally become Japanese?
What made me want to become a Japanese citizen, I've been living in Japan for about 12 years at that point, and I've had family here, I've raised my children here, and I thought, well, I want to be able to vote, I want to be able to contribute, because I saw a lot of change happening, wanted to be part of the team, be on the same boat. So I thought, let me become a Japanese citizen because this is where I live.
And when you went into the immigration office and said you wanted to change your
Yeah.
citizenship, how did the immigration officer react?
Let me put this, they were rude at first. Yeah, exactly. Surprise, surprise. They literally asked me, you're American. Why do you want to be Japanese?
Why would you do this?
I really wasn't thinking about giving up the US citizenship at the time. It was really about what can I do for Japan because this is my new home. And never has anyone said, no, you're not really Japanese, or I don't like the fact you've done that. They may not see me as ethnically Japanese or the same as them, but you can see the impact on them when they see me and I say I became a Japanese citizen. They're like, you chose us.
So Japanese respect that you became a citizen. How about Americans? How do they react when you tell them this?
People said, are you applying because of Trump? Are you turning your back on America? There's something about America that you don't like anymore. And I said, no, I wanted to apply long before there was any issue. Obama was president when I was applying for citizenship.
You've been in Japan for 10 years.
Yep, in Tokyo.
So you'd rather be in Japan to receive healthcare here. Why is it better here than in America?
I would have been screwed. Like, I can't even imagine a hypothetical scenario, like what kind of job you would need to cover that. So I've had 2 brain surgeries. I've had 2 bouts of radiation therapy. I've taken chemotherapy medication. And I can't imagine it would be much cheaper than probably $1 million if I had to pay for that out of pocket in America.
I can't imagine either. This is insane.
Even just like an MRI, right? One MRI back home would probably cost like between $1 and $2 grand, I think is like how much it is. And I've had to get those like a lot.
How much do you think you've spent out of pocket here in Japan for the treatment?
I wouldn't say I've paid more than $10,000 out of pocket.
Why do you think the Japanese healthcare costs are so much lower than our country?
It's just, the privilege of having universal healthcare, paying into the tax system. I feel like in America, I don't want to say people are selfish.
They're suspicious of where their money is going.
Yeah, maybe suspicious is a good word. They have this these blinders on where they don't see how paying into this system will benefit them in the future. But unfortunately, you're only healthy until you're not. And someday you're going to need it. And I wish kind of everyone realized it will benefit everyone in society as a whole if we pay into these types of things. And you never know when it's going to happen to you. And unfortunately, it happens to a lot of Americans where suddenly it happens and they're bankrupt. And it's just really sad to see that happen in a country with some of the best doctors in the world, some of the best hospitals in the world, but people can't access them. So it's it's sad. What's the point?
What are your names?
I'm Shuhei,
I'm Hiroya. Where are you guys from?
Tokyo, Japan.
When you guys first came to the United States, what was the most surprising thing about it compared to what you were expecting?
How comfortable people are with themselves. In Japan, they're more comfortable being in a group and they consider other people part of themselves. While here it's the individualist mindset kind of drives people to act more uniquely and differently and distinctly from everybody else around them.
What happens if you kind of go back to Japan with that individualism? How is it received?
They don't accept me as much as other people, I'd say. I do dress differently, I do speak differently. It's different from the people in my age group. I'd say they still accept me just because I look Japanese, but if I looked any different, I think I'd be ostracized a little bit.
You're glad that you have this other perspective, this more unique self-expression. But let me ask you, is there any potential positives to the Japan, however we want to describe it, community?
I identify a lot more with my family. I don't see myself as an individual. I don't see myself trying to be different. And I think that's definitely helped me foster empathy to understand other people and their walks of life. And I don't think I would have been able to have that without my Japanese culture.
In Japan, there's a lot more of an emphasis on, as an individual, you're part of a larger whole, making sure that you play a role within your larger community or society. And that goes basically all throughout your life. Whereas in the US, that sort of individualist mindset tends to sort of stray from the idea of being part of a larger whole. Today, we both came from the airport and we ran into a lot of trouble because, we'd sort of approach someone asking for help and they would sort of cue us to a different person. They didn't think it's part of their responsibility. So they sort of overlooked the idea that, they might be part of this larger whole. It's about doing your part, but it's also sort of a mutual understanding that everyone else is contributing something. Everyone is allowing each other to thrive as a cohort instead of trying to compete.
One more kind of follow-up for you guys, just because it's interesting. Presumably you guys speak Japanese. Would you guys mind giving us like a
そう
sample?
ですね、今ちょっと彼がちょっと午後の便逃しちゃって、今ちょうどシカゴのミレニアムパークで座っててインタビュー。
感謝が一番。
As an American lived in Japan for 11 years, would you consider going back to the States or you gonna keep living in Japan?
Short answer, I'm gonna stay here. I think anybody who comes here and visits, you get a taste of it, and once you stay here long enough, you're kind of trapped.
Do you have any American friends who tried to live in Japan, didn't work and went back to the States?
Yeah, many. There's a lot of people.
What's the difference between you and them?
They're really close to their family and they want to be back around them, and I think I've seen that as the number one driver why people move back to the States. For me, I'm just as close with my family, but I really wanted to see my path here and see what I could create.
Any advice for Americans who wanna move to Japan?
Think about your career. Like, what can you do, and can you do that over here? Because if you don't have that kind of plan ahead of you, you're not going to make it, because it's going to be really hard to survive as an English teacher, and it's not really fun to just teach English. What are ways that you're able to give back to Japanese society? And a main way to do that is through your work. And if you don't have something like that going for you, it's going to be pretty tough.
So why are you leaving Japan?
Well, my biggest issue is that job opportunities aren't very plentiful here. Japan's not very welcoming for foreigners in general, especially in the job area. And Japan, they don't really need you. That's a harsh truth.
Where are you going after this?
Not 100% sure, but I'm probably going to China.
So that's why you're leaving Japan. It's too hard to get a work visa here unless you teach English. The salary is low for the English teaching jobs, so you're going to leave.
As far as other than teaching English and being in poverty, I just don't really think it's worth it. I just don't want to deal with that.
Would it be hard to get a nomad visa here in Japan?
Yeah, it's only for 6 months. Honestly, I don't really think it's worth it. And you got to make a certain salary. It's more paperwork. So I'm just good with coming here for 3 months at a time. And of course, there's the politeness that is shown to visitors, no matter where they come from. But when it comes to professional opportunities, jobs for foreigners are definitely not in very plentiful supply.
This is the biggest culture shock I experienced when I moved to Okinawa, Japan from the United States. And the fact that it's even a culture shock is so depressing. And it's that the people here are so kind and considerate. And I'm gonna give you an example in just a second. I've been living in Okinawa, Japan for just over a year, and this culture shock didn't actually set in until a month ago. I had gone back to the States for about a month. I was reverse culture shocked. You know how other countries love to say that Americans are entitled? It's kind of embarrassing, but they're absolutely right. When I went back to the States, I was so overwhelmed and stressed just from people's energy alone. Now, are there exceptions to every rule? Absolutely. Of course, there are people in the United States who are so kind, so considerate, just like there are people here in Okinawa, Japan that are the opposite of kind and considerate. In the United States, the vibe and energy is like every man for themselves. We're here, that just doesn't feel like the case. It truly feels like a community. Whether you know the person next to you or not, everyone just feels like they're kind of looking out for one another. Okay, now here's the example. The other day, my husband and I got a ring on our doorbell. I looked at him, he looked at me like, are you expecting anybody? Are you expecting anybody? No. Okay, who is at our door? So we live in an apartment and we have this little call box thingy. Basically, if someone's in the lobby downstairs, they hit a certain amount of buttons and it calls to us, it rings to us. We come over here, we press the button, we're like, hello? And this is a screen and you can actually see who's there. We hit the button, we say hello. There's this sweet little old Japanese man standing there and we can see he's holding like a pamphlet or something. He goes, hi, hello, would you be okay if we left a promotion in your mailbox? Yes, sweet old man, of course. Since you asked so kindly. He literally asked every floor, I'm sure, if they were all right if he left an advertisement in their mailbox. How many times have you gotten home in the United States and you had a little advertisement stuck in your door or stuck under your windshield wiper and you don't even really think about it? It's just kind of the norm. This sweet old man literally rang each doorbell in the apartment complex and probably all the others in the neighborhood asking if it was all right if we left a promotion in our mailbox. And this is just one example of many of how people here in Okinawa, Japan are so kind and considerate to others.
Do you have to pay US taxes living in Japan as an American citizen? Yes, you do, but here's kind of how it works. The US government requires you to do a tax return no matter where you live. As long as you're a US citizen, you have to fill out a tax return every single year. That's what the US government says. And you don't have to pay taxes if you make under $120,000 living in a foreign country. So me living in Japan, as long as I don't make $120,000 a year, I don't have to pay the US taxes and just the Japanese taxes. But as soon as I start making $120,000 plus, everything above that I will have to start paying US taxes on as well as the Japanese taxes on. So it's a little crazy, and basically you can get double taxed depending on how much money you make. But if you're a student, you're gonna be fine. You're not gonna make that much money.
Japan is not living in 2050. You just live in the United States of America. She's right. China is not in the year of 2050, and neither is Japan. You just live in America. You see, we used to say the same thing. It became this repetitive thing when we went to other countries. Oh wow, they don't have this in America. America doesn't have this. Or, man, where has this been my whole life? High-speed rail, affordable healthcare, nice infrastructure. The reality is, this is how life should be. This is how our tax dollars should be spent. As tax-paying citizens, we deserve the best public services, at least. I wonder where all the money is going. But anyway, it's 2025. Upgrades to daily public services should be a right, not a luxury. It is almost as if they care more about upgrading our phones versus upgrading daily essentials. It was just the other day when we realized that none of these third world countries outside of the US are in the future. Their government just knows how to put tax dollars to use in a different way. Could you imagine how the USA would look if they positively innovated technology? It is definitely not normal to see people struggling or homeless. A lot of the things that people think are normal in the US definitely are not. Once you step out of the comfort zone and travel, you really begin to understand what is supposed to be normal and how public systems are supposed to be.
Those are the things in US I like more than Japan, coming from somebody who was born and raised in Japan but lived in US for 10 months. Number one, it's easier to talk to strangers in US than in Japan. Only times I approach a stranger in Japan is when it's really necessary, like asking for directions or asking where the bathroom is, etc. Nobody expects someone they don't know to start a small talk in Japan. So I'd go days without talking to somebody when I lived alone, and it could get really lonely. But in US, small talks are happening everywhere. So I would ask a lady in the store what cheese I should use for my pasta, and she would ask me what kind of pasta I'm making, and she would tell me which cheese is her favorite, and we would continue conversing for a minute or so. One time I was checking out my groceries, the cashier said, "Oh my god, I like this pancake mix," and I was like, "Oh, is it good? I'm gonna make pancake with blueberry," and she was like, "Oh my god, I love that too." It's just so friendly vibes in US, and those interactions sometimes make my whole day, and it warms my heart. Number two is people are more open to talking about mental health struggles. I've seen so many people talking about feeling depressed, eating disorder, body image, social anxiety, and so on. Even influencers and like celebrities are so open to those things, and that makes me feel less alone. And I learned that being able to be vulnerable and talk about those things openly is a strength, not weakness. And as a Japanese person who didn't see many people talk about their problems growing up, it changed my whole mindset toward mental health. It's one of the best things that I've realized, so I'm so grateful. That's it for today. I'm gonna go on a mental health run from now, so bye guys.